Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Johnny. Hey, pal. It's another Thursday live show. We go live Thursdays at 7:30 and Sundays. Make sure to like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating out there in the podcast world for everybody listening. You can also download the show. Just search for Unbearable Sports. Hey, pal, how you doing, my friend?
Doing pretty good, Brad. Doing pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I've been just looking at all these, our new, I've been watching a bunch of videos on him, and I absolutely love the new CEO and everything. He's been up. He's awesome. I love his, bringing back these like morals and all this stuff back to Chicago. And I think he really bleeds Chicago. I wish he brought up like the Packers or something, like us beating the Packers, because he talks about, winning the NFC North and all that. But I was like, talk about beating the Packers. That would really get us fired up, So
yeah, I agree. But I love him. I love the new CEO because to me, he just seems like a CEO, right? He's coming over from the Big Ten. Kevin Warren, we're hearing more and more about him. I heard him just do an interview with a couple different shows, and he just seems like a class act. He seems like someone that should run the company you work for, and he just seems straight business. He said he has no hobbies at all, and like work is his hobby, which kind of feel bad for the guy, but you're like, yeah, good, right? Like, and he has such a good football background. He says he's going to be involved in some of the football decisions. Obviously, Ryan Poles is who we're going to be breaking down today, but it's nice to see an owner that knows football rather than an owner in Ted Phillips or a CEO in Ted Phillips that knew finance.
Finance. That's about it. And honestly, I think it's important talking about him because I honestly think they're very similar. Like I noticed that they're kind of very similar people. Like I could also see, Ryan Poles not being, basically having football as his life. He has no other hobbies. He's very analytical, and they just seem like they would vibe really well together. I'm all about vibes, Brad.
Yeah, exactly. Good vibes. And Bam Bam Sam's asking how we're doing, and I think it's good vibes. Good vibes all around is how we're feeling with this. We have the GM, we have the president, right? But also another thing too is the assistant GM. Now we will talk about Ryan Poles. This is all going to be about breaking down Ryan Poles after the first year. That's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. But also, I don't know if you saw this, Cunningham, the assistant GM, got a GM job for the Cardinals, ended up turning it down. Now, bold move, right? And a big reason is he wants to see how this all plays out. Like he's not going to be the GM, but also he wants a better job, honestly, because if you're the GM, do you really want to be the Arizona Cardinals GM right now when you have Kyler Murray, who's going to miss the entire year? You're going to have to trade away a lot of people. Your best defensive player in J.J. Watt's retiring. It's a really, really crappy situation there. I get why he didn't take the job. It's nice seeing that he's a top candidate. And also, fun fact, if Ian Cunningham gets taken by another team, the Bears get 2 consecutive third-round picks for compensatory value. It's because there was a new rule in place. So just so everyone knows, compensatory picks are in place. So if you lose somebody, then you get the pick in place. And I will be bringing that up later on when we talk free agency today. But if we lose Ian Cunningham, we get a third-round pick. Let's say he left. We would get a third-round compensatory pick next year and then another third the following year, because in 2020, they made a rule that if a minority gets hired as a GM or a head coach from someone else, they get the 2 consecutive third-round picks, right? I'm like, You guys could take Alan Williams.
Yeah, take Alan Williams too or something.
Like, well, you're at it because that's why the Chiefs thanked us because we got Ryan Poles. They are getting 2 consecutive years of extra 3rd round picks for compensatory picks. So that's where it's like Ian Cunningham seems like an awesome guy, a super chill dude. But come on, I want those picks.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised. Ian Cunningham, I think, it's really hard to tell his emotions, but I still remember there was an interview that he was finally in, and it was, him and Ryan Poles, and it was just kind of Ian Cunningham was there, and they kind of pointed that out of like, Ian Cunningham, we really don't want to ask you any questions. Like, we're just gonna ask Ryan these questions. And you couldn't really tell if he was irritated with that or not. But hey, I'm glad he's here because it seems like he's, side by side with Ryan Poles with all these decisions. So
yeah, it's Ryan Poles' right-hand man, and that's why we're gonna be going after the big cheese today. We are breaking down the first year of Ryan Poles, the good, the bad, and was there any ugly out there? We'll be breaking it down and giving out a confidence score. How we're going to be assessing him is in 3 different categories. How did he handle the draft? How did he handle trades? And how did he handle free agency? So really going to be looking at everything, the good, the bad, and just try and get as honest as possible. Was it good? And was it bad? So let's go to our first section of today's segment. So last show, we talked about the draft ad nauseum. If you want to go through the Bears draft talk, you can just listen to the last episode. And really, both PayPal and myself gave him about a B+ and A- for how he handled the draft. The overall draft haul was pretty good, right? With some kind of misses later on in the draft, so you can't fault him too much. But I think overall for me, I'll at least just give my little synopsis. I liked what he did on theory, right? On paper, what he did. He traded back to get more draft picks so that he had more bites at the apple. I like the idea, the theory of drafting a Kyler Gordon, who they saw as a first-round talent. I think Bayless was more of a courtesy pick for Justin Fields. But then you go later on in the draft and you get project players like Braxton Jones, Dominique Robinson, Zachary Thomas was seen as a better guard. Treston Ebner, home run threat, right? Like, I like what he was trying to do. Go with a small school, Ja'Tyree Carter. That's where I think overall, I like what he did in theory. But PayPal, what about you?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, we ranked him the same grade. It seemed like he turned nothing into something. I mean, we had 5 picks and they were all, not a first. And it was kind of, I was really expecting the draft to really mean nothing, and then he gets all these guys. And like you were saying, it's like Elijah Hicks, Trenton Gill, and Ja'Tyree Carter are still on the team and they were 7th round picks. So like, that's telling. So I think that's great. Like, you don't really expect those guys to even be on your team or be practice squad guys, and I mean, quick little synopsis as well. Hey, look out for 2nd round picks. Hey, we'll see if for this upcoming draft, we'll see if he can draft people in the 6th round, because we had 3 and he kind of fluked on all of them. But I mean, I think he really hit. I mean, Jaquan Brisker, obviously, I think we can all tell he's going to be amazing, depending if it's going to be all pro. Same with Braxton Jones. What a steal at the 5th round. And Kyler Gordon and Velus Jones, I think maybe in a year or so, we could be like, hey, this draft was almost like an A or an A+, just because if those guys really develop into kind of who we're expecting them to be, it could be an even better grade than what we think right now.
And we talked about it too. I just want to add a little bit on as well. Like, to me, the reason why this isn't an A is because you see what happens when you get an A draft, like with the Seahawks. That transformed that. It made them into a playoff contender. And so to me, this didn't do it for us, but it at least filled out a lot of holes. He also did a very good job at signing the undrafted free agents. Honestly, now it's confidence meter time. So people watching live, what's your confidence with Ryan Poles in the draft? To me, I'm giving him an A. Honestly, I think it's hard to I think it's really, really hard to say that he didn't do well when he was able to accumulate picks. On theory, on paper, he seems to know what he's doing rather than Ryan Pace, who is trying to trade up for absolutely everybody out there, which has been shown as a bad strategy. Seems to have a good head on his shoulders and also get some good return for his draft pick. So to me, I am very confident in what Ryan Poles is going to do. But PayPal, what about you?
Yeah, you basically stole the words out of my mouth. I mean, I think, yeah, I am not really worried too much with him this upcoming draft. I think he proved that, yeah, he gets value out of everything. I mean, his picks, and then we'll talk about it later, but free agency, he really looks at, is this guy really worth the salary that he's gonna get? Um, so I just absolutely love it, and I'm interested to see what he does. Yeah, with like even higher draft capital, because that was a year where you had no draft capital. Now we have the most draft capital, it seems. So
That's where I do feel confident with him this year, especially because you need to trade down, right? That is seen as the smartest thing for us to do. Because if you trade to 2, if you trade to 4, you can still get a blue chip prospect. And the big reason for blue chip prospects is that they're significantly safer than getting anybody else outside of that, right? No matter
yeah,
who you like more, it's the blue chip is seen as the more money in the bank type of a player. And so yeah, I trust him. I think he's gonna be good, overall. So let's go into the next one, which ironically enough, we're talking about trades. It's his trades we're gonna be bringing up right now. So breaking down, he made 5 trades, and still I feel like I'm missing one. So if I
right.
am, let me know in the comments. But I have down 5 trades. There was the Khalil Mack trade for a second in 2022 and a 6th in 2023. N'Keal Harry, we got for a 7th in 2024. Robert Quinn, we traded him away and we received a 4th in 2023. Roquan Smith for a 2nd and a 5th, and AJ Klein in 2023. And Chase Claypool, we acquired for our second round pick, the 32nd pick in the draft in 2023. Overall, PayPal, what do you think? Does anything stand out to you with the trades that he made?
Hey, I I think just like I love it just from the get go of just he tried something. I think I always reiterate this. He tried something, and I think you can't hate any GM for at least trying. Like if you sit on your butt the entire season and don't trade for anything, especially when your team isn't winning games, then you are a terrible GM. Like he traded, he got rid of these older guys that, hey, like these guys are gonna take like cap hits. These guys aren't gonna, be part of the future of this team. So might as well trade them. I still think, and it's hard to really say like if anyone was actually looking at him, but Robert Quinn, it would have been a lot better if we were gonna like able to get rid of him, before he was able to play somehow. I think definitely his trade stock went down, and we only got a 4th. I think we would probably got like a 2nd or even a 3rd or something, because he went crazy last year. So um yeah, that's my only complaint with the trades. And Chase Claypool, I think we're still really figuring out if he was worth that 2nd round pick.
See, and this is where when we were talking about the show a little bit, one of the concepts was, do you take a good side, I take a bad side, or vice versa. I'm going opposite on this. I am not.
Okay.
It's funny. I like his draft trades. I trust him with the draft trades, and maybe that's because he has a chart, right? He has a chart that he trusts. Maybe he stole it from the Chiefs, and he's using that for everything that he's doing. But I don't love these trades because a little bit of what you were touching on, I don't love it because could you have gotten a little bit more? Right? I think that's the big question here, because the Robert Quinn thing. if you're going to deal him, just deal him, right? Get rid of him. And I was kind of preaching for this. That's where I was a little bit nervous, right? Like, try and get rid of him. Try and get rid of him early because he's aging. He's a speed rusher. Try and do that, right? But yet again, we don't know the market for him. We don't know if everyone was saying, yeah, I'll give you a 3. Just imagine Bears fans, if we got a 3rd round pick for him before the season, we'd be irate, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I still have that pit in my stomach. Could you have traded at certain times to get more out of it? Even like Roquan Smith, tag him and trade him right now. I still am a bigger fan of that because now people are assessing their situations. Maybe they're trying to give you a 1 now rather than that second. That's where I'm a little bit nervous, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it seems like we were able to give away too much for not enough, but then also, yeah, I think of the Chase Claypool, it's like we almost gave up a little. And we still don't know. I mean, I think the N'Keal Harry bringing him in, I mean, we see it with the free agency, which we'll talk about later, but it's just he tried all these guys, these wide receivers to, at least say he was helping Justin Fields, trying
Yeah.
to find these guys. And I feel like I can't hate him for at least being like, okay, N'Keal Harry, he was a former number 1 draft pick. Maybe he just needs a second chance somewhere else. Maybe he needs a new offense, whatever it is. And then, I mean, obviously he didn't really work out. Whatever the reason is, I think it's still kind of up in the air of exactly what the reason is. But hey, Chase Claypool, I think getting the second round, it's like we really don't. I mean, we discussed it, and it's like there's not many options next year at wide receiver, and maybe we wanted that big number 1 S type wide receiver, and he was kind of the only available, guy. So he had to overpay with a second.
Yeah. It seems like that was like all the details that come out. That's what he had to do to get Chase Claypool. And I've heard some people make the argument too. If Chase Claypool's a wide receiver coming out in free agency, he's actually probably wide receiver 1 in free agency right now.
Oh yeah.
Because do you want Nelson Aguilar? No. Like, Chase Claypool's probably that guy in free agency. So I get that. I also like the N'Keal Harry. I just can't help but be like, could we have gotten more? Or
Mhm.
and in theory with Chase Claypool, if you know that it's going to take a long time to get him up to speed, then why not do it later? And maybe it's because, he would go to Green Bay. So Chase Claypool, it's hard to judge. I think that it's easy hindsight to just kind of scold him for it. And I don't hate the Claypool thing. I just am always kind of, could we have done a better situation with Robert Quinn and Roquan Smith and gotten a little bit more out of it? But those are
Yeah.
questions that we'll never know the actual answers to.
Mhm.
Because I'm so used to getting 125% back on my first deposit when
Oh.
I use betus.com, betus.com, the leader in sports betting. Make sure to use our promo code unbearable. Links in the description. If you use promo code unbearable, get 125% on your first deposit. But PayPal, right after that sneaky little ad read right there.
Nice.
How do you feel confidence-wise? And everybody watching out there on YouTube as well, what's your confidence in Ryan Poles making trades for players or trading away players? PayPal, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as confident as I was with the draft. I think I'm confident, but I'm not like over the top confident or, terrible or anything. I'm happy with it. Like you were saying, it's like we don't know kind of, were other people going for Chase Claypool and we had to give up a second or yeah, like and we who knows, that could have been you know, the trade of a century, like that's what Chase Claypool kind of says. He's like, that was undervalued for me. Like I should be like a first round pick. Um, but yeah, I'm not like overly confident with it. It's just, I like that he got rid of these guys that were kind of they weren't going to be with the team. They were going to be kind of cap expenses. So get rid of them. But with next year, it's a totally different game. It's like we're going to be getting guys to add onto our team to win a Super Bowl rather than getting rid of people. And so it's going to be a little different. And I'm still confident in him. I think he has to kind of put away the analytical side sometimes. I'm like, okay, is
Get
this
out of
guy
here.
like, is he worth the value? I think sometimes he gets maybe too in his head with the value, but that's my only complaint. But I'm still confident with him.
Okay. And so what are you giving him?
Out of 10,
No, just a grade.
uh, for this, I'd do a B. I would do B. I mean, it wasn't fantastic, but I'm definitely not mad about it. I thought they were all good moves, but not like great.
See, and I'm gonna go on the other side. I am going with the C because I'm not too hot, I'm not too cold on it. But I will say this: you were kind of alluding to it. He, to me, he did well at the whole tank job thing, right? He
Yeah.
traded away his players, and to me, it goes back to how much value could he have actually gotten for some of these players if he timed the market right, right? Like he sold his stocks when he needed to. He sold his stocks, but was it at the top? That's just my question when it comes to his trades. That's why his tradability, I'm right in the middle. I'm not excited about it. I'm not hateful of it, but I think it's right in the middle where I liked what he was able to do. He got rid of the people that he needed to. So I think overall, to me, I'm giving him a C. Renewables giving him a B. Also, yeah, Joe Reed signed today, wide receiver, as a new addition. PayPal. Let's go to the last one out here. Let's go to the free agents. And the free agents, to me, is where it really differs. If we look on the offensive side of the ball, we signed Byron Pringle. I didn't add Dante Pettis, but Byron Pringle to a $4.1 million deal. EQ St. Brown to about $1 million. David Moore to $1 million. And Kari Blasingame for about $1 million. Ryan Griffin, 1 year, 2.25. Dakota Dozier, 1 year, $1 million. And Lucas Patrick, 2 years, $8 million. I'll just go over to the defensive side just to get those out of the way as well. Nicholas Morrow, 1 year, $3 million. Al-Qadim Muhammad, 2 year, $8 million. Justin Jones, 2 year, $12 million. Dane Cruikshank, 1 year for 1.18. And Tavon Young, 1 for 1.36. There's other ones that we signed, but these were just some of the notable ones that came up. My numbers are on spot we're from spotrack.com. So if anyone's questioning them, you can bring it up with them. But PayPal, what say you on this free agent list? Anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about the offense first. I mean, it's just a lot of, like we just kind of talked about. It's a lot of these kind of rebuilding players. Like there's no like notable names really. I mean, Byron Pringle, like a third, I think he was the third receiver for the Chiefs at the time. And like same with EQ St. Brown, didn't even play for the Packers. David Moore, like barely played either. Carly Blasingame was the only, quote unquote starter, and Lucas Patrick. But like none of these guys, you're like, wow, like this is gonna help our team like get to the playoffs or something. It was a lot of just kind of scraps. And you can't hate him for it. I think Ryan Poles, like, it's not like he was trying to win. I don't think he was really trying to win too much this year. I mean, I think he kind of understood where he was at, where the team was at. Like, there's no point in hurrying it up. And, you gotta, as our new CO says, you gotta build a basement before you build the house. Like, we can't see it getting built right now. We see nothing's building up, but there's a basement getting built. And I think that's what he really did this year, was building that basement. And it's not the sexiest stuff, and that's why it's like you can't give it like an A or something. But for like the situation of kind of starting from the ground up, like it's I think it's going to be really good. Like looking back at it of like, wow, that helped us tank and get a lot of money and set up us for this year.
See, that's the thing that I'm a little bit nervous on, right? I'm nervous about like it was really good for us to tank with his free agent signings. And that's where to me, like, I'm not going to give my confidence grade away, but I'm not very confident in what he can do in free agency because he hasn't shown us anything with this. And it's not like I'm rightfully saying he's terrible at it and he's never going to be a good free agent signer ever. It's just because I think this year especially was doing favors for people as well. That's what I've also heard, like for GMs, is like you give people favors. You signed Byron Pringle from Kansas City. You signed EQ and Lucas Patrick from from the
Yeah.
Packers. And then on the other side, you get Al-Qadim Muhammad. You get some other players that kind of Matt Adams that kind of fit the system that are the Eberflus guys, the indie guys that you bring over. But I think just overall, my feeling is, and I also posted Larry Ogunjobi as a picture because I actually like what he did with Ogunjobi, where he said, no, you're not worth it. And he wasn't worth it when you saw him play this year. So I like what he did with that. But I think overall, I think that he could have signed better players if he wanted to win. Right. But that goes
Yeah.
back to if he was trying to tank and just kind of like build a, like, obviously people want to win, but if you're trying to just like clear house and rebuild, he did good with that. But was he signing people to get this team better and win a
Right.
Super Bowl? I don't think so.
Yeah. And that's where I think that's where I don't get too mad at about it because I just don't think he was like, all right, we're winning the Super Bowl, boys. Like, we're getting some notable names out here. We're getting my boy Al-Qadim Muhammad. He's going to rack up 10 sacks this year. It was none of that stuff. It was like, I think it's just kind of getting used to the roster. We're going to get all these receivers that can be potential 2 or 3 or 4 receivers. And these guys can be the backbone for our offense, for the next year to come. And then we can sign those big roster names and all that stuff, this upcoming year. So if that's his plan, I mean, I think he's a really smart guy. I mean, I would give it a pretty high confidence grade. But again, like you said, it's just can he get those big names? And like for me, I'm scared of like, is he gonna be too much? All right, too much value. Like
True.
if
Yeah.
something isn't like in the value or in that price range for him, he might just say no. And then that could be a potential like star of this team. And we could get someone a lot worse that wouldn't help the team as much. But
He reminds me of a guy that we both know. It's our other brother, one of our other brothers, where he was looking for a house and it literally took him a year because he couldn't find the right price. And he was like so disciplined and he's so analytical, just like Ryan Poles, and he's patient. And yeah, that is one of my fears as well. Is he? It's okay to be patient about a house, but if you're patient about a player and you're like, all right, well, you're not worth that, he's going to be overspending in free agency. So that's where there isn't a lot written about what he's been able to do. But I will say, you look at his free agents, 2 years with Al-Qadim Muhammad, fail, right? Justin Jones, 2 years, 12 million. I'm not going to say fail because I think it was Ryan Poles that said it. You need to kind of see other people lift what he can do. And I think that's where I think overall, Justin Jones, I'm not going to say fail, but he wasn't that good. And Byron Pringle, 4 million, fail. Lucas Patrick, what we saw, fail. And I think to me, when he was investing more into these bigger name players, that's where it gets me. Like when we're talking about confidence, that's where my confidence starts to dwindle, though, because when he did spend his money, it didn't work. And that's where my confidence level is definitely low I don't mean to be negative about it, but it is. It was not a good free agent class, but you definitely see how that's where his mindset, I like his mindset. He's signing 1-year deals to say, this isn't our year. Let's wait till next year. But when he had some of that conviction, that's just where I get nervous when you're talking about evaluating talent that are at the free agent level. So that's my little depressive discussion.
Yeah, and honestly, and the thing though too with that is, I think Justin Jones will be good if he just has good guys around him. I mean, he had terrible defensive line, and that's a whole other conversation of like, is the D-line coach also just terrible? Like, they drastically took a step back this year, and they looked good in the beginning of the year, and it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely. I mean, if they weren't spending money at all, it's like, okay, at least you can maybe pay a little bit more for Nicholas Morrow. Pay him $3 million or pay $4 million for Byron Pringle, because you're not spending anything. You didn't spend any money last year. So it's like, why not just for a 1-year contract, at least try this guy out. And if he wasn't worth the $4 million, I mean, it's not like it inhibited us from getting anyone else.
And I will, there's some good comments out here. Tiff was talking about like all his favorites are basically injured. Matt Adams, Byron Pringle, Dane Cruikshank, all injured. I also made the comment too that a lot of these could be on practice squads for the other 31 teams. Bears Bones makes a good comment. 1-year signings and then the 2-year signings he's saying are more culture builders. That's good. But also Jimmy put, it's very simple to me. If Poles takes us to the playoffs next season, he is a good GM. If he doesn't, he needs to be fired. I agree with you with the playoffs. I also have the high hopes. Like, I think he should take us to the playoffs because of the playoff. We're in playoff contention because of what we're able to add in. J-Rock saying if Poles doesn't spend that money in free agency and tries to build through the draft, it'll take 4 years. That's and that's where I think a lot of this year will have to be signing that. So Renewable says, if tanking on purpose, A+. That's correct right there.
I agree, Brett. I mean, the thing I think Bears Bones puts up a great point is like, with these free agents, Ali, like, and this could also be a head coach thing, but with Eberflus. But these guys all fought very hard when they were out there. And I mean, we heard the CEO talk about it, of like how hard the guys fought when he went to the Bears and Eagles game. And he's just like, wow, like this is where I want to be, because we see these guys just fighting, so hard out there. And whether that is, Eberflus, or if that is Poles just picking the right guys, I think that's something to say. Like, I think, he picked at least guys that have a good culture and they're not these bad locker room guys. And they kind of had that championship mentality. Because, I mean, Chase Claypool, obviously he wasn't free agent, but Chase Claypool, we see he has that championship mentality. And it wasn't like that was something that he learned from Eberflus. That was something that he just has built in him,
Yeah. And so I know that you have another topic that you want to bring up with some of the free agents. And I will segue to this because this is something I just feel so pessimistic when I go into the free agency mode, because also this is the biggest thing for us. I think that the draft, I feel confident that he's going to trade down. I feel confident that he's going to do some of that stuff. But like in some of the comments, we're seeing we got to build now, right? We got to win now. Tiff saying like if we pull another 3-14, both Flus and Poles could be out. I'm going to something that just kind of bugs me. Hey, pal, do you know what this chart is that I just showed?
Yeah. You can tell me about it, Brad. I won't, I don't waste my energy in.
I'll tell you about it. So for those that are listening, what I just put up is what's called the compensatory pick chart. This is a chart that shows, are the Bears going to get a compensatory pick? And the answer is no. And so even though that we rebuilt, this just puts a sour taste in my mouth, because we got rid of Allen Robinson left, James Daniels left, Bilal Nichols left, Andy Dalton left, Artie Burns signed a $2 million deal, Pat O'Donnell signed a $2 million deal, Damian Williams But basically, we could have had compensatory picks, for those that don't know, when your team loses a lot of players, they then compensate you with other draft picks. So Allen Robinson would have netted out to a 4th round pick, James Daniels a 5th, Bilal Nichols a 6th, Andy Dalton a 6th, right? And so we aren't getting one because we signed Byron Pringle, that essentially wiped out the 4. Al-Qadim Muhammad wiped out the 5. Justin Jones wiped out the 6. And Nicholas Morrow wiped out the other 6. So to me, when I look at Byron Pringle, when I look at Al-Qadim Muhammad, when I look at some of these players, I look at it and go, God, I would take a 4th round for Byron Pringle in a heartbeat. Take a 5th round for Al-Qadim in a heartbeat. 6 for Justin Jones, maybe, and a 6 for Nicholas Morrow, yes. And that's where I get a little bit frustrated with how he handled it, right?
Yeah.
Because there is something to be said about it. It is his first year, right? But we are rebuilding, and because of what we spent, we weren't able to get any of these compensatory picks for this. And yes, we're nickeling and diming, but it's just something that just puts a bad taste in my mouth where I'm like, we could have had a 4th, we could have had a 5th, we could have had a 6th. So
yeah,
that's where I'm coming from.
Hey, I like that. I mean, I guess just looking at the other, side of it, I think with Ryan Poles, it's like, what else what is he supposed to do then? Was he not supposed to sign, Pringle? Was he not supposed to sign Justin Jones? Was he supposed to leave this team, kind of as bad as it was?
Good
And
point.
I don't know, like, because I also, we had Eddie Goldman, we had Tariq Cohen, we had Danny Trevathan, Jakeem Grant, and Allen Robinson. And it's like, you think about, like, okay, are those any guys that we should have kept? And I'm always a big Jakeem Grant fan. I mean, he's pretty injury prone as well. So it was kind of like, why would we kind of keep him? But I mean, Eddie Goldman, he could have also helped in the, in the trenches.
But he retired.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
retired. So it's like one of those things, like, getting rid of those guys wasn't a big deal. I mean, Allen Robinson, we saw how bad he is. James Daniels was, I think, the only guy that, and Bilal Nichols, really see them playing out there. Andy Dalton, it's like, okay, there's no point really keeping him,
And I do like J-Rock's point out here. Poles dumped James Daniels before having a replacement. Tevin Jenkins saved him on that. And that's a really good point, because I think about it. He was going in with Dakota Dozier, right? And then, thankfully, and I feel terrible saying that, thankfully, Dozier went down, and then he added Michael Schofield. Michael Schofield, a historically significantly better player than Dakota Dozier, and played that way. And then Tevin Jenkins comes in and completely saves it because he just dominated. So, so that's where I don't mind who we let go. Like Renewable saying that too. How many were actually good for their new teams? I don't mind the people that we let walk. James Daniels is the only one, but I feel Ryan Poles wants to rebuild the way that he wants to. Allen Robinson was not going to resign here, and Bilal Nichols was such a middling player. He was the epitome. When our friends from Raiders in Paradise asked me about Bilal Nichols, I'm like, he is the epitome of 75 in Madden, where he's like the epitome of, he's not good, he's not bad, he's just kind of there.
Yeah, you don't want him to start, but he's a good backup, but you don't want him to start. So it's like you shouldn't pay him, like whatever money they gave him. But he wasn't that good. So I don't know. I think, I don't know, with, and I always agree. I feel like I agree with the Renewable. It's just like, he was trying to tank, and I like to think he was. I mean, doing all this stuff, and obviously they can't say that they tank. They can't really acknowledge anything towards, like, we're trying to tank or lose games. We don't care. Like, he said, he's like, oh, I didn't even notice that we got the 1st round pick for the NFL draft. It's like, bull crap.
Like, yeah, bull crap.
Yeah, you definitely knew, like, you were probably, jumping off the wall for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, was he not watching NFL football? But
yeah. Did he like speak it into the mic as if his lawyers told him to write it up like, we did not intentionally tank. I am completely surprised by getting a top 3 pick in the draft.
Literally. And it's just like, I mean, he's got to this point. I just can't not see that he was just trying to find these scrappy guys and build that basement, build from the ground up and get these cheaper guys that could potentially, we found EQ St. Brown, like that. He's going to be a good, 3 or 4 fourth receiver for us. Like, hopefully he's not, ever going to be in that second or first for us, but we found these guys that we can kind of build off and built this culture, that we have for the Chicago Bears now.
So what would you give him? Letter grade. And people watching in the comments, what would you give? How would you assess it? Like, what's your letter grade for the way that he handled free agency?
Yeah.
Like level of confidence. That's what it is. Level of confidence going into this year with him.
And I'm not going to, and so like, if we're talking about last year and if we're talking with the tanking, I think he got like an A- for that, just because he hit the ground. He didn't pay much for guys. He signed a wide variety of guys, perfect for tanking. But that's like we were just talking about with, our last segment, just like it's going to be like with trades and everything. This is going to be completely different, where you actually have to get big names. You actually have to get these guys that will make a big impact on your team, rather than just these little, the max he spent was, $6 million a year for, Justin Jones for 2 years for $12 million. So can he spend that big money on these big name guys? And that's the only thing I'm kind of scared about. But I generally like Poles, and I'm going to give him a B+. We'll see how aggressive he is. That might be a little high, but I trust in him. I trust in his analytics. I trust in his ability. I trust in Ian Cunningham,
Okay. I'm sided with my boys Jimmy, Tiff, and J-Rock with this right now. With they're saying we're getting some F+ in the chat.
Okay.
With free agency, this is my feeling, is anyone can demo a house, right? Like, really, like anybody can destroy something, dismantle something, and take it down. I think he did a bang up job, right? I'm talking like fixer upper level. What is it? Chip Gaines level destruction.
Demo day.
House, demo day, shirt off, like did whoo. Like he destroyed the house. We got the first pick. Beautiful masterclass in destroying it. But this is about confidence. This is about, did he give me confidence that he can go out there and sign free agents? The answer is no. That's where with the draft, he showed me he can trade back. He showed me that he understands it. With the actual trades, he showed me that he understood that he needed to get rid of some players. That was good. But when it comes down to free agency, like I said, the 2-year deals scare me. Like, yes, they're culture builders. Bears Bones made a good point with that. I just get nervous when not a single one of these players we feel good about next year. Like Nicholas Moore, we don't feel good about. Justin Jones, we don't feel good about. Like literally everybody out there. I mean, Kari Blasingame is probably the only one where like, yeah, you could be a starter. But everyone else, Lucas Patrick, we don't know if he's good at center, right? He played like 10 snaps at that. And that's my big fear. When we talk about confidence, this is my biggest fear. And this to me would be Ryan Poles' downfall. And I think about it too from another analogy, a corporate analogy, because first off, it is hard to rebuild a house. But from a corporate standpoint, Elon Musk, whatever someone thinks about him, he always said, you get paid for how difficult of decisions or how difficult the job is you have to do. This is a very difficult job. You have to make big time decisions. it's all fun and games when you sign 1-year deals, but when you're signing 5-year deals to players and when you're giving out millions upon millions of dollars to someone, your butt's on the line for this. You mess up by the Byron Pringle deal, no one bats an eye. But you mess up, you sign Davenport, the edge, to a big time deal. He tears his ACL, your butt's on the line. So that's where, to me, I can't. I'm giving him like a D minus, because to me it's about confidence. I'm not grading what he did. I'm grading how confident. And right now, I'm not confident because I did a free agent episode. I don't know if this is out there at all, but I showed veterans that we could get at a deal and they went for a bargain. And so to me, he needs to negotiate those bargains and get those bargains. But yet again, if he was tanking, he did a great job, but he hasn't instilled that confidence in me overall. So that's my feeling.
And it's one of those things. It's not like I agree, like we got these amazing guys, you know what I mean? So I think it's both fair. I think what was I going to talk about? Yeah, it's just, we'll see. It just shows that I think he at least like still gets the moves out. I still think he gets all these guys. He's not afraid to, spend some money at least. Like I think of, obviously the Packers is kind of a, they just don't like to spend anything in free agency, but they get no one, and we at least we at least got guys. We at least try to change the, bring in all these new guys, get rid of a lot of old guys. So that was at least refreshing. I remember, at the time, but I agree. None of these guys are like, oh, wow, we got a number one or a really true start besides Blazing game.
Yeah, Double B makes a good point. Chicago Bears media is so chicken little. The sky is falling with you guys. We've never had it so good. Bowles gets a B+, and he feels the end of offseason with an A+. So PayPal, Double B's on your side.
Hey, Double B, welcome to the show. I don't know if you've ever listened, but hey, I like him.
He's on your side with that. I'm the chicken little right here with the I just feel like it's not sky's falling. I just don't feel confident with him is all. With at least just free agency. And it's just he hasn't proven anything right now, but I trust him with the other aspects of this stuff. But hey, I'm excited to see him try and do something here. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited to see how he handles this free agency, because now he's going to show off. He's got to show it, and that's where I am pumped up about. And Bears Bones makes another comment too. We go to old Kevin Warren. He's more confident because Kevin Warren is up there. I think that's where it does feel good. It does feel good. It feels like, even though that we're all like, I'm a little bit more sour, PayPal, I think your average grade was over a B. And
I love Ryan Poles. I really enjoy him.
Me right now, I'm like right in the middle because of that free agent thing. But I think overall, I'm excited to see what ends up happening. And this is what we're doing. We're keeping it real. We're saying what is going on. But I think overall, it's just we tanked. It's done. And now it's up to Ryan Poles to show us what he's capable of. Because if he doesn't create something, then he's going to be seeing the door. He's going to be seeing the door if he doesn't do it now, because he did a masterful tank job. But now it's time to rebuild this house, build it up. And there's a lot of people in place to make this happen. It's an exciting time to be a Bears fan. You're going to want to like and subscribe. We have some excellent content coming out. We have some all-star games that we are going to be covering as well. So you're going to want to hit like, you're going to want to hit subscribe, you're going to rate 5 stars, and also tell your friends. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad